is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. Again, whatever week this is, there's been a week for all of us. Since the last show we've done, well, actually it's been 2 weeks since we've done a show. Maybe it's been a week since you watched the Bridging Heaven and Earth show, and all of us had, time in between, human time and space where things happen, where we're involved in our lives, our families, everything that humans are involved with. And, this week, I was sitting with a bunch of friends and we were talking about how amazing in a way it is and was and hopefully won't be, but it is at the moment. Or let's say it was when I came into the studio tonight. How we, in the name of God, in the name of love, in the name of truth, in the name of so many things, hurt each other and cause so much pain to ourselves and each of us, and how we, as a human species, clearly don't honor and take care of each other, ourselves, the dolphins, the whales, the forests, the air, the water, the oceans, on and on and on and on. And we were talking about, why is that? What is that about humans that they seem to literally be cutting off the branch they're sitting on? How do we keep doing that over and over again? And you see so much people trying to protect this dolphin area from sonar, or this headwaters forest from cutting, or the Amazon from cutting or farming or something. And somehow we know that we have to heal the human heart. We have to heal our hearts. We have to experience that place of truth, of love, of oneness, of God, that all the religions are based on, that all the masters and teachers, male, female, have come onto this planet Earth and said over and over and over and over again, we have to know that. And once you know that, and once you become one with that and realize that, you become one with the oneness, that the Father and you are one, the Goddess and you are one. Then you realize if you hurt a dolphin, you're hurting yourself. If you hurt a tree, you're hurting yourself. That there is no separation between all what we see as the differences of the races, religions, colors, sexual preferences, hair, weight. Over and over again, we keep experiencing the separation. And we know that at this time, it's our time. Everyone watching this show and everyone hearing this show, whenever you hear it, it's time to recommit and rededicate to the experience of love. Because that's what it feels like in a human being when we experience that infinite. It's about experiencing that unconditional love, that oneness love, where there is no separation, where there is no difference between the things that we see as differences. They're so minute in the context of that extraordinary love. And, tonight we have a show with a guest who's dedicated to experiencing that love and sharing it. She spent her whole life seeking, experiencing, knowing, realizing, seeking, experiencing, knowing, realizing, and it's taken her literally all over the world. Ann West is a spiritual teacher. She's the author of an extraordinary new book, Truth from the Source. She was the founder of the Universal Cetacean Institute that has done enormous work, play, activity to protect the dolphins and whales. She's a host of a number of spiritual radio shows that go out all over the world. And just her life, again, is dedicated to feeling love and sharing it. And that's what we really all want. And we're also tonight going to show some videos. We have a beautiful, beautiful video with Twin Flame, who we've shown before. They're really, dear friends of the show, extraordinary talents out of Denver, Colorado. This amazing video, Peaceful Warriors. And then we're going to put together, the crew is, how we've done it before. We do basically a live MTV video with, background video and pictures and things like that. And you'll see these pictures, and it's one of the spots on this earth where we hurt each other as human beings over and over again. There's just not enough God to go around there. There's not enough land to go around. There's not enough water. There's not enough weaponry, it seems. There's just not enough of something, and it makes us hurt each other over and over again. And when you see these pictures, it would have to touch you, like, do we want to keep doing this? Is that what we intend to do tomorrow to help perpetuate that? And, hopefully the answer is no. Again and again, we have to, if we understand at all the lack of separation, the oneness of this life, the beauty of God, then we have to recommit to that experience, recommit to that knowing. So, as we normally do, join me in a short meditation, then we'll have this incredible video, and then Ann will be with us. So there's an opportunity for us all. So join me in a short meditation. Hi everybody. So let me just tell you what the images you're going to see. Well, there's the video is going to be, as you'll see, it's nature, and nature pristine and beautiful and loving and sharing and offering itself to us, its brothers, its sisters, as human beings in its extraordinary beauty. And then we also have some pictures. We've taken both these pictures and blown them up from the Los Angeles Times. One is of, which we've shown on the show before, a Jewish family. It's a funeral, and it's a picture of a father and two of the sons who are burying the wife and the mother. And then we have another picture of a Palestinian family of, I think it's 4 or 5 siblings of a 15-year-old who was killed in that war, the war in Palestine, in Israel, in Jerusalem, in the Middle East. It could be a lot of places. And look at their faces. Are they that much different? Do they look like brothers and sisters? And yet they're sworn enemies, whatever the idiocy of that is. It's just time. It's time to end it and to experience that love. So here it comes. Hi, everybody. It was really something. We're on the set with Ann. Hey, Ann. Welcome
Hi.
back.
Thank you. It's great to be back here with you, Alan.
Yeah, we feel the same way. So, I mean, it's amazing how we do these things to each other, isn't it?
Yeah, it breaks my heart to see those pictures. It just, I've seen a lot of things traveling around the world, and when I see pain like that in children's faces because their mother got blown up, it just, there's nowhere to go with it. We share in their pain. As you say, we're all one. How can we separate ourselves?
It is an amazing thing. How do you think it is that the human species has gotten to the place where all the differences are paramount and that oneness is in the background? How is that?
The separation, they're not remembering. The duality is so great that there's no remembrance of that connection to their divine source. And the world is really magnifying and amplifying that reality, which is a lie. So if to remember our divine source, we have to have, at this point, abrupt awakenings. Sometimes we have a death, our own death. We go through these tunnels of darkness. We go through serious illnesses. We're living and dying every day, just with our own thoughts and our own beliefs. And for myself, having the spiritual awakening that I went through in India was a way of me reconnecting with the divine source. Hopefully you don't have to die and be reborn or have to go to India.
Right, it would be really crowded if everybody needed to.
And it's already really crowded.
Right.
So we have to try to remember that now, here and now, every moment. And I know that's something that you've been talking about and doing your shows about all the time, being present here and now in this moment and really appreciating the gift of each breath. And it sounds so out there.
Or trite even.
Yes.
Everybody knows
yes.
You should stop and smell the roses. But it's like,
right.
Why and where are they? And I'm busy.
Right, I've got to survive.
Right.
I've got to pay the rent. I've got to feed the children. And that's all true, too. Because of the way that our society is built upon itself, this rat race and this craziness of having to, just what someone pays for rent today in comparison with what it was. I mean, our
healthcare, we were talking about that
healthcare and the cost of living. It's really hard to remember who you are and take the time for yourself. But that's really what it's down to, is you really have to take time for yourself.
And they're not mutually exclusive, although it looks that way. To take time for yourself and to support what you need to support in your family and all those things.
I think just taking some time to be silent in a meditation, like you did before the show, and to really clear the mind and drop everything. Training yourself to do that on a daily basis is a massive step in the right direction. And it's a little thing. This is a few moments a day or a couple of times a day, but it helps to calm everything down, quiet the mind, bring you back into your heart. It's so easy. So much will take us out of our heart space. And what we're talking about now is coming back into the heart. This kind of stuff that we just saw in those videos, those pictures, wouldn't be happening if we were in our heart. We wouldn't be killing. We wouldn't be
hurting
doing
each other
that.
the way we do.
No, we're not in our heart. And when I say we, we're a part of that because we're here right now. We're watching it. We're witness to it. And obviously, some of us are doing everything we can to remind each other: stay in your heart. Stay in your heart. If you're there, then the love's there, and it's unconditional.
Yeah, like I call it the human experiment. It's a really tricky experiment to be in a seeming duality and know you're the oneness, and to know that, and to walk that razor's edges, it's tricky business. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, there's a few human experiments going on right now, Alan. I think.
Yeah, it's a lot going on.
Yeah, we could just have to look at the government right now and see what we're being experimented on.
Yeah, in what ways? So, when you went to India, I mean, in essence, you were looking for that connection, that realization, that epiphany, that I mean, that was your hunger, that's been your hunger for a long time, but when you went to India, something happened to you that like opened the door, right?
Well, originally, I mean, as a little girl, I always knew that there was more to life than what met the eye. I knew that intuitively, although everything in my surroundings and in my life would negate that. So there was no spirituality or higher source or divine reality going on in my life. But so I understood it inside that there was God. I didn't know what God meant. I didn't know if it was a man with a long beard somewhere up in heaven, which seemed to be upstairs, up in the clouds.
Right.
And that reality went on for many years. But when I went to India, it was a very bizarre experience. I mean, for one, at that time, I wasn't consciously seeking for an answer. What had happened was that I'd woken up on my 30th birthday, and I had a very beautiful lifestyle, great family, great home, all the traps and trimmings and toys that I had thought I needed and wanted to live a happy life. But on that morning when I woke up and realized that something was really missing from my life, not knowing what it was, for 3 months I went through turmoil of thinking that maybe this feeling like nothing was it anymore was me losing my senses. I mean, I really thought for a moment that I could be going mad, because how could I have reached a point, kind of like climbing to the top of the mountain and then realizing that you hadn't gotten anywhere. It felt like that. Now, to some people it might seem like, well, you've got the right car, you've got the right house, you've got the money, you've got all of that, you've reached something, and to some degree, in this material world, you have. But
there was just a giant emptiness, hunger.
Complete emptiness and void that took me 3 months of asking, well, if this isn't it, then what is it? And one night I went to bed and I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was an omnipresence, a voice, literally, that woke me up out of a deep sleep. The voice was a masculine voice, and it said, you have to go to India. That's what led me to India. When I sat on the bed, listening to this voice booming at me in the bedroom, my husband was asleep, and yet it's saying, you have to go to India as soon as possible alone. And I sat there, broke out in a cold sweat, and thought, what the heck is this all about? Who is this? Is the radio on? Is the TV on? And then proceeded to just whisper, are you talking to me? Because I couldn't
I can wake my
believe
husband
it.
up if you're talking to him. It might be
He's
better.
not listening. He
Right.
can't hear you.
Right.
He couldn't hear it.
Right.
And it was, yes, Anne, I'm talking to you. You have to go
Just
to India.
like that. Yes, and I'm talking to you.
Just like that. Clear as a bell.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was pretty bizarre.
And did you have a spiritual background before that? So this was,
This
you were
is-
just trying to achieve the American dream, and you had more or less done it to a reasonable degree.
Yeah, yes, very much.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, and so having heard this call in this direction, I had a choice at that point to either pretend that it didn't happen, because then nobody would have to know that I'd gone mad, or
Right, you weren't certifiable yet.
Right,
if you didn't
but I might
admit it.
be.
Right, exactly.
or I could go to India. And that was a big choice to make in that moment, because I was in turmoil before. For 3 months I was, this isn't it. And now I thought, well, maybe God heard me. Maybe there is really a God that is actually going to talk to me. So I decided to make a deal, because I didn't know what else to do.
This was a one night. It wasn't the next thing. Why aren't you planning your trip or anything like that?
No, one night. This is
it. Go to India. Go by yourself.
Yes. And the deal that I could come up with, muster up in that moment, was, if you're from the light, because I was concerned at that moment that maybe, who knows, you hear about strange things happen. poltergeists and devils and, you know, whatever. And I wasn't interested in anything that was dark. So the deal was that if you are from that source, that divine source, then this is the deal. I'll buy a round-trip ticket to India and one night's reservation in a hotel.
Wow. You wrote a hard bargain with one night.
That's because
Holy God.
I didn't want to be in control. I didn't want to be the pilot. I didn't even want to go.
I know.
I was terrified.
That's a tough bargain. One night, that's all I'm giving you.
That's it.
Right.
One night. The rest, you have to give me, you know, where I'm to go, who I'm to see, and what I'm doing there.
Wow.
And that was it. And then I waited for an answer, but he didn't say anything else. That was all the instructions that I got.
Wow.
And then 2 days later, I got a phone call from Canada with, from a friend of a friend who had heard from my next door neighbor that I had made this decision all of a sudden to go to India. And she had a message for me, and it was as clear as day. She said, "You're to fly into New Delhi. You're to stay at this specific hotel. There's going to be a gentleman waiting for you, and he's going to make all your plans to go up to the Himalayas. And there's going to be a teacher waiting." And that was the beginning of the book, because I started journaling it so I could remember all of the ways that it all came through. And I followed every single message that I got from that point. It took me 3 weeks to compile everything, get my shots, get my visa, get the passport ready, get my backpack and all that stuff. And I left 3 weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why don't you tell us, we'll get to the book in a second. Why don't you talk about, like, you know, you get to India and how you got to the master. I mean, I think it's a really interesting story. I remember, when I was reading the book going, wow, it
was pretty bizarre,
pretty
wasn't it?
amazing. Yeah, pretty amazing.
Well, everything that came through that I wrote down chronologically, all the information that I was receiving wasn't from a voice anymore, an omnipresent voice. It was from human beings that would say, "Hey, I hear you're going to India. I've got some information to give you." So I would, I figured that my messages could come from all sources. And the other part of the deal that I made was that I would stay attentive and listen at all times to everything that came through.
Wow.
That was
that's fair.
That was fair.
Right.
So by the time I arrived in New Delhi and I went to the hotel that I was told to go to, there was a gentleman working there that I was to ask for, and he really was there. So I was happy that,
was he there like with a sign, like a taxi?
No, he worked there. He worked at this hotel, and I was to ask for him. So when they said, yes, he works here, I was completely relieved, because I thought, okay, tip number one is panned out, okay. So yes, he was there, and then, but unfortunately, it was the time of a big festival that was going on in India at that time, and they dance for 13 nights and 13 days in this village that I was to go to. They held this big festival, and people go on a pilgrimage from all over India with the deities to celebrate all of the gods. So the flights up there's not that many, were all taken for 13 days. They were solid booked. Now, I'd said I was going to spend one night, and I had to be on the road the next day to wherever I was to go. So when this gentleman that was helping me with my arrangements to get up there told me that there's no way you're going to be able to fly up there, everything is solid booked, then it kind of threw me off a little bit. So I said, then hire me a car and I'll drive up there. And at that time there was a big strike that was going on, and it wasn't safe because, in India when there's a strike, they can get pretty angry, and they stone cars, they set them on fire, whether there's people in them or not. So this gentleman instructed me very wisely to not take that route. So I was completely confused as to how come I've only got one night to stay here, remember the deal, and now I'm not going to be able to get up there. So what am I supposed to do? So I went up to my room and I sat in the bed to meditate, just to sit in silence really and try and figure out. I was getting really frustrated. And the phone rang. And a gentleman said, welcome to India. I'm so sorry I didn't have a car at the airport for you when you arrived. And I said, well, who are you? And he was a complete stranger who had heard via a friend of his in New York. And it's quite bizarre how this all links together.
Yeah, no, synchronicities
but
are
it's very
right. Yeah, I remember
very
thinking that.
Odd. But one thing led to another. This gentleman ended up coming to the hotel, and he ends up being like the Donald Trump of India. And he just was doing a friend of his in New York that I didn't know a favor by taking care of me. So we end up spending the entire day together and really connecting on a deep level and on a spiritual level, because he starts asking me about what I'm doing there, and I told him about this voice and that I'm going to the Himalayas, and he said, well, my gosh, and I think either you're crazy to be alone in India doing this, or I have to help you. What can I do to help you? And I said, well, I'd really like to be up in the Himalayas in this village by tomorrow. And as luck would have it, or as spirit would have it, he managed to get me a ticket that day, and I flew out of there at 8 o'clock the next morning. Now that was one little thing that was just like, seemed like a little miracle.
Right.
But there was nowhere for me to stay when I got up there because everything was booked. But on the flight, there was this Indian albino called Data, who sat next to me on the plane.
Sounds like something out of Star Trek. Data. We finally got you flying with Data. It's an interesting.
And he sat next to me, and we got into a conversation, and he asked me where I was staying, and I said, I don't know, I'm just getting up there. And he said, well, everything's fully booked. I'm the head of the tourist department for
albino.
that whole area, and for Delhi. And so he said, I'm going to take you to the best hotel that you could possibly stay in. There's only 5 rooms in the hotel. It's not really a hotel, it's just like a big house.
Right.
And you're going to choose the room that you want, which meant moving somebody out of the room. And I was thinking, oh my goodness,
What a way to start India, kicking somebody
I didn't want to.
room.
I didn't want to do it that way because I didn't really want any karma for that. But he assured me that they would be happy to wherever they were going to be going. So one thing after another made the trip just so simple, so easy, even in the face of all of the stuff that was being put in front of me. It seemed like I was having obstacle after obstacle, and I would just somehow go right.
And so why don't you talk a little about meeting the teacher and how that affected you and things like that.
When I arrived at the ashram, I was told by
that he doesn't see anybody. I remember that.
He doesn't see anybody unless you've been studying.
Yeah, for 100 years.
For a long time, because they've been 25 years up there just studying it's like a laboratory of meditation and...
What's the person's name, by the way?
In my book, I had to change his name because he asked for...
to protect the innocent.
Yeah. So, Swami Sharosh, but we call him Swamiji.
Everybody's Swamiji.
Exactly. Well,
93% of the population is Guruji, Mataji,
a more friendly. It's a friendlier way of, more. But when I got there, I was told that I was not really supposed to be there for another 2 years. So I said, there must be some mistake because I'm
an impetuous 30-year-old American woman, and I'm supposed to see him. And a voice told me.
I actually ended up having to tell her the story because she, she was very inquisitive as to how I even found him.
Right.
And so she went upstairs to the ashram and told him that I was there.
Yeah, I remember reading that. And he said, bring her on in.
Bring her in immediately. So when I entered the room, he welcomed me home and completely recognized me. Had 200 people sitting there in front of him and said, you might not recognize her in this body that she calls Anne, or is called Anne, but she's been with us for many lifetimes and she's come home. So welcome her, feed her, teach her what we've been doing here for 25 years, bring her up to speed. And then he continued to initiate me day after day. Day after day, he kept me by his side.
For how long were you there?
I was there for a month. And every day and evening, he would invite me to sit with him and eat with him. And it was only...
And this was an unusual occurrence, especially for someone who was there for an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it just
yes,
never happens, really.
It was a very bizarre experience. And of course, what was happening for me was that my heart was opening for the first time.
In an unconditional way.
Completely. I mean, the first thing he did when he saw me was he took my head and he put it on his heart. And at that point, my body just started releasing tears, and I was being flooded with endorphins. And it was the most loving experience that I'd had in that moment. And for the heart to keep expanding and opening the whole time I was there, I mean, that's what led to the big experience that I ended up writing about, which I'll wait for you to tell me when to talk about that, because it is so bizarre.
All right, now
so
maybe what we'll
beautiful.
do is we'll hold that for
Yeah.
now, and then we'll see the video, and then we'll come back and hear that story. It's a fantastic story. So, okay, so what we're going to do now is show the twin flame video. It's called Peaceful Warriors. It's really beautiful. I mean, they're both extraordinary singers and musicians. It's Rebecca Hilton and Wen Boley. They're very beautiful people. And, you know, listen to the words, Peaceful Warriors. beautiful, aren't they? So we're back on the set with Anne. So why don't you talk about, like, you met this person, and this person is a renowned spiritual teacher, master from India, and the thing you got the most in word and deed and vibration was just unconditional love.
Pure love and joy and bliss. And I mean, the mantra that he gave me, Amaram Ham Maduram Ham, is that I am eternal, I am blissful, and that's who we are at our source. And to remember
we can
that,
just be really joyous and playful and just love
and
being here.
And it's, you know, it's easy to say that, but we still have to really be it. And how do you be it? And it,
What would, I mean, did he, like he said, you know, to do this mantra, to meditate? I mean, did he have tools?
meditation. The main gist of enlightenment or realizing the self, he says you really cannot get there without meditation, because otherwise it's the mind being in constant motion, creating the monkey mind, and until you can really quiet the mind, you can't know the self.
Because that's like sitting quietly underneath all the ideas and concepts and busyness that goes on in our mind, ego, what we call.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that was like the main message over and over again, is to come into that quiet, to come into that love in a way.
That's one of the main messages, and also to get there, there's certain paths that we can take, and everybody has their own way of getting there. You know, there's not just one path. There's hundreds and hundreds of paths and thousands of paths. But what he has found, and what I have adapted from his teachings, it's important to raise your vibrational frequency. And for me, I found that the choice of food that I eat, the type of water that I drink, the type of thoughts that I allow, the type of television that I won't watch, or movies that I won't watch, and movies that I will watch, really allowing yourself to see this body as a temple. And in seeing the body as a temple and treating it that it's housing the most beautiful jewel in the crown, which is your spirit.
Yeah, the consciousness of...
Yes, absolute consciousness, and realizing that we are all from royal descent. All of us. There isn't anyone, no matter how rich or poor you are, that's not from that same...
Yeah, we're all children of the same Father, God, truth, Goddess, however.
Exactly.
And then, in essence, we are one.
If we had that kind of respect for ourselves, for our body, it's not about being self-centered, and it's about understanding how valuable we are as beings, and how much of an intricate part we are in this whole beautiful web that we're creating.
And how
it
feels better, you know, to be in lightness, to be in joy, to be, you know, so we would make,
you respect
and
yourself,
grateful.
And then you respect others, and then you respect all life. And you realize that even that little ant on its path wants to live. Everything wants to live. You know, it's here, to experience itself. And then you get this amazing respect for all of life at all times. And that's what we're talking about by opening the heart. That's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. How do you get there? Well, reverence, you know, and really taking time to study the devotional principles of yoga. You know, being a yogini that isn't afraid to devote outside of yourself. I think one of the biggest lessons that I got is that I'm here to serve humanity and all of life, and that I never realized before this experience. I didn't understand what it meant to really serve until I went through that, my own, what I call my death, my ego death. When the ego went through its own death, and I came back into this body temple after having left it, and realized that, my gosh, what else is there to serve but the divine creator itself? And I am that, and you know, we are that.
And that's where the love and the joy is. So I mean, in a human life, in a way, it's simple because that is where you feel most harmonious, most joyous, most blissful. And so if we could start to experience that more and more, that's what we would choose over and over again.
And it gives you a purpose. It gives your life a purpose instead of a self-serving purpose. To have something outside of yourself. It seems like it's outside of yourself, but it's
yeah.
actually...
I mean, inside, outside, it all becomes one.
Right.
I mean, there is no inside, there is no outside. There's no up. Like you were saying, that
right.
God is up.
Yeah. I mean that's
yeah,
such
the
an
whole
old
thing that with his. At least for a while, there's no time and space, and then at some point, although you're in some sort of seeming illusion of time and space, there is no such thing as time and space. So
exactly. When after I'd been put through a series of initiations from my teacher, I then left the Himalayas and went down to Bombay to be there. I just felt it was time to go. And when I went through what I classify as my ego death. I mean, as far as I know, I died on that bed in Bombay. I don't know whether my heart stopped or not, but I left the body through a series of experiences that started as if there was a fire coming up through my feet, up my legs. And have you ever heard of people self-combusting and all you find is a little pile of ashes? Well,
you're bigger than that, so it didn't quite happen to you that way.
I think it could have.
Yeah, no, it's a thin line sometimes, actually.
There was a moment when I was outside of the body and the body was laying on the bed, where the experience was so electrifying that I knew in that moment that there was a possibility that my body could just self-combust, and I had to make a choice at that point whether I wanted to stay
and serve or be gone.
Obviously, I chose to come back because my heart was completely open, and my love for this planet and all of life is so immense that that was as great as the experience that I was having outside of the body, which was completely orgasmic. Without a doubt, being out of the body and being tapped into the creative force, which I was at that point, is an orgasmic experience. It was hard to leave, but
Yeah, but it's almost like the potential for humans to be here and have an extraordinary experience. Almost like a different shade of it, but that same kind of extraordinary experience in a body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the experiment. Can it be done? Because we know that without a body, there's the infinite. And in a human body, it looks like separation. So how can we be in a body, like be in this world but not of this world?
Yes.
How can we be in the body and experiencing that bliss?
Yes.
And that's what, everything in a way is about.
And I think that some spiritual seekers get that confused with spirituality, that they're not grounded in their spirituality, and
that's why we call it bridging heaven and earth. Yeah, I mean,
you
but you can be both.
Anchored.
Yeah,
yes.
You're in a body,
and you can stay completely joyful without being too much up in the air. And
well, that's the balance. Not too much down here and too much. So how do you walk that razor's edge? I mean, that's why they call it. Or at least until this moment, it hasn't been that easy. We were talking earlier, even for the best of us.
Yes, it's
a tricky business here.
Definitely. I think really staying tuned in to your heart's desire and your purpose is going to keep you grounded.
And what would you say? I mean, that probably everybody who's watching the show and everybody who will ever watch the show is thinking, yeah, it's a good idea. How can I do that? How can I do that more? What would be another step? How does Ann do it? We assume Alan doesn't do it, Saturday. How does Ann do it?
That's a great question, because the first thing that I would say to somebody when I counsel with people individually or in groups is, Is what you're doing right now in your life bringing you joy? Are you fully excited about waking up in the morning and going to work? Is what you're doing giving you, feeding you? And if it isn't, and you dread it, then you're just digging your own grave, early grave. But if what you're doing is really fulfilling you, and you're feeling like you're not only bringing joy to yourself, but you can see that you're leaving trails of joy behind you, and you're making wherever you've been a better place than what it was when you arrived, then you've got to be doing the right thing. And it will feed the soul, and the spirit will shine through automatically. It can't not. Because if you're following your bliss, then you're living your soul's true destiny, as far as I'm concerned. We all have a divine destiny. We can, when we have choices in every nanosecond, we can choose what we want to do with that moment. And we can take the high road, or we can take some other road, you know. And so I say, make every moment count. Make every decision count. Make every conversation you have count. There's nothing that doesn't count. When I went through these experiences in India, I was honored to be taken to see the Akashic records. And when I saw the Akashic records, you know what they are, right? They're records
the history of all,
everything,
everybody,
every thought you've ever had.
Right.
And it's not on the physical plane. So I had the honor of seeing my own Akashic records, and I could see that every thought I'd had, every tear
It's recorded.
that had dropped from my eyes was in this book. So everything counts, every single thing. And so when you realize...
So it's almost like to be more attentive to yourself and where you are and who you are.
Stay awake.
Stay awake.
Stay awake and aware, alert,
and you can change things. I mean, there has to be... I mean, sometimes we feel like we can't change anything, so who wants to look at the fact that we'd like to?
There's such a lie that we're telling ourselves. It's a belief that was probably given to us by someone who really didn't know the truth, because I do know that we can change. We can change ourselves
in a breath.
If we want to. Right. It's a decision that we make. And,
right.
You know, am I going to be loving to this person? Am I going to be patient? What would love do right now?
Yeah, well, we talk about like love in motion.
Yes. What would love do? You know, if you've got a situation in your life, let's bring it down to like a simple fact. If you've got a situation in your life that's bringing you turmoil or unhappiness, or you've got a person in your life that's particularly confronting and you just don't get along with, you have a choice to either go that same route and get into the battle, husband or wife, where they're constantly going at it, or you can either make a decision to get out of that situation, or you could listen to what the other person really is trying to say, because most times when there's conflict, somebody's not being heard. And if both people aren't listening, you know, you've got two minds, not two hearts.
You get those pictures.
You've not got two hearts.
You know what I mean? You get those pictures.
You've got that.
Yeah, you got those pictures we were showing. Yeah, I mean, you get war, you get sadness and hurting and death.
Violence. And I think really staying open and taking the first step to be the bigger one and say, okay, I'm going to change this situation tonight. I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to smile. I'm going to say...
Yeah, I'm not going to take it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trip, isn't it? And, you know, I mean, the interesting part is that when we're in it, you know, and we're attached to it, I mean, that's why, you know, we talk about the attachment. That's, you know, that's the curious thing. If we weren't attached to it, then it's easy to let it go. So, I mean, how do we live our lives? And, you know,
how does it make you feel?
Yeah, how does it make you feel as you go on?
If you're feeling like awful about yourself, and you're not moving forward in a joyful way, then there's obviously something you've got to change.
Got to change, you know, and it's amazing, but you know, we're coming to the end of the show. It's like we just got started, and there's so much more to say. About. And you know, maybe we'll do it again soon. So, again, you know, you saw the pictures if you've been watching the whole show. Do we want to do that to each other? Do we want to put that pain out in this world, that hate? And the answer is obviously it's idiotic, it's stupid. We don't need to do it anymore. The love is there, the oneness is there, we are that. So if you want any information about Anne, her book, Truth from the Source, call me, Alan, 805-687-2053, 805-687-2053. Good night. We love you. Let's recommit to the love. Good night.